Welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. I'm Paul Harrell. As promised, we have State Representative Joey Carr with us. He represents, is it District 34? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, welcome to the program. Really appreciate it. We wanted to have you on because you are a freshman. This is your first term. And we've talked about other freshman legislators, and I know we're late in the year at this point, but it's always good to get to first of all put a name with a face. District 34 is in Northeast Arkansas. It's a portion of Mississippi County. And welcome to the program. Really appreciate it. How has your freshman experience been so far?
Oh, it's been great. It's everything I expected, and a little bit more, based on my background of being interested in politics growing up and in college, and then as a public school teacher, I taught civics for 17 years. And so I understood the way the political process works, about Constitution, the three branches, separation of powers, checks and balances. So I just wanted to get involved. Actually, my third great uncle served in the Arkansas House of Representatives immediately after the Civil War.
Wow.
He was kind of he was deemed an Arkansas scalawag because he enlisted with the Union Army. And so after the Union was victorious, Arkansas had to be readmitted as a state. And so in 1866, he was elected, served through that. And in 1868, they came up with the Constitution to readmit Arkansas back to the Union, and he is actually a signer on that. So I've always been interested in that, in dealing with that in my family, and so that carried over to my occupation of teaching. And I understood about, campaigning, getting elected, getting your name out, promoting yourself. The only surprise that I had was the cost of promotion material. So, not to say of being overconfident, but I just, I was well informed, and I had a good understanding and a good foundation. And several of my friends that I went to high school and college with have already served, and they've termed out, and they've always like, hey man, when are you going to run? You'd be great for the position. And so the opportunity presented itself, and I had a lot of local people in the community that were very supportive of me, and I was fortunate to be elected last November.
Wow. That's fantastic. I really appreciate the fact, and this is, I think, very an interesting point. So you said you've taught civics for how many years?
17 years.
Okay. So you've taught civics for 17 years, so you definitely know how the process works. But is it exactly the way it is on paper when you teach it out of a textbook versus actually being, in the midst of the sausage making from the, a bill getting help from the Bureau of Legislative Research, going into committee, getting it out of committee? It's got to be a little bit different than when it's just on paper, right?
Well, true. You have all the behind the scenes action that takes place. Like you said, Bureau of Legislative Research. Those people, they are a valuable resource to the process. The staff workers that work in House member services, all the committee. You talk about committee work, but you really don't understand the amount of time that goes in within each group, as far as hashing out, going through, dissecting, decomposing, and breaking down all the parts of the bill. Some people are okay with parts of it, so some people aren't, and so you try. There's a lot more compromise than what people would realize, a lot more so than what I realized, and I just think that goes to show how much the people that are serving here are really trying to get a holistic approach and do what's best, not only for their particular district, but also to keep in mind and have a respect for the entire constituency of the state of Arkansas.
Wow. So you mentioned committees. This last session, you were, and I'm assuming still on, so public transportation as well as aging children and youth legislative military affairs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so was there any highlight in those committees? Any bills? Any issues that you guys dealt with? Back in the session that you want to talk about with us?
Just some things.
Anything that stood out?
Uh,
Well,
well,
but they might not be the sexiest
yeah, yeah,
committees. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And that's
They're
kind of the
not,
bane of
and
freshmen, right? Freshmen don't
it,
exactly a lot of times get judiciary or public health or insurance and commerce.
right. But I will say this: I knew that I had a chance that the education committee would probably fill up, and so I kind of shot for public transportation where I'm at right now. Uh, in Mississippi County. I live 3 miles from the Mississippi River. I'm 5 miles from I-55. I'm about 100 yards from Burlington Northern Railway. And then we also have the Aeroplex. So I have all four modes of transportation. So I thought, that would be very practical for me to be on because we hit all four of those in my area. The one thing that's kind of surprising to me is the cost of transportation or of resurfacing or rebuilding roads and interstates. I do know this: that RDOT, man, they have so many projects going on right now, and we just had a meeting yesterday with Mr. Gil Rogers and Miss Lori Tudor, who are up in the leadership positions of RDOT. And while everything is not going as fast as what people would like on some projects, they really do a good job for getting things going because you have to have the money, then you have to have the bids, you have to procure the services. There's so much work that goes into that before the projects actually begin. And then, of course, we all know that how long the projects take. And I just try to convey that while we have those growing pains and we want those things repaired, we have to be patient. We ought to be cautious for our driving, other drivers, and also for those that are working in those construction zones.
Hmm.
As far as DHS is concerned, uh, it was so kind of alarming to me at how many caseloads that DHS has, and again, those people over there they do a great job. Uh, it's like they just have an ongoing list, and they do a lot of good things to serve the needs of Arkansans.
What are your thoughts in general about a lot of and we've talked about this on Conservative Arkansas Media many times, and I know it's crazy that it's November, and we actually have
Yeah.
the fiscal session that's going to come up next year, but the legislative session that, was back in January, February, March, April. Generally, what were your thoughts on some of the social issues? I mean, you are a Republican. I've been saying that I think a lot of these bills that came out to protect kids, the sexualization of kids, whether it's taking minors to drag shows, or the surgeries that we're calling healthcare now, that sort of thing. I think that was, and this is not just happening in Arkansas; it's happening everywhere. I've been calling them Christian red states. They're really stepping up to protect children. What were your thoughts on some of those pieces of legislation?
Well, it made it easy for me to vote because the basis of that is protecting kids. In dealing with children, we all know that they don't always have the level of maturity, the responsibility to make decisions for themselves. And if if kids are exposed to that type of events, or if they're in that setting,
Sexual debauchery.
unfor-
I'll
right,
describe
right.
it for you. Sexual debauchery.
Yeah, well, and I was just talking about in general, all the way across. If that sexual debauchery, I mean, that's something that is going to be, in my opinion, it could have a traumatic effect on the kids. And so whenever you make decisions for and that was what my thing was always in education and as administrator. After I taught 17 years, I was the elementary principal for 13, and everything we did was for the best benefit of the kids. And so it made it real easy for me to vote in the direction that I did regarding all that legislation because I just kept thinking, this is child protection laws.
Hmm. No, you're exactly right, and we now have. I mean, 17 years. That's a great career. I would imagine 17 years ago you wouldn't have thought that
Oh
we
no.
would have kids trying to identify as cats and wanting litter boxes and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean the slippery slope. I mean it's just gotten totally out of control, and it's just good that I feel I've just been so proud of the state legislature for on these issues, essentially saying, you know what, we can it's okay for us to take an issue and in our laws say this is morally wrong and you're not going to do it, and it's happening all across the country. Well, not mainly in southern red states, but I really feel like it's the path forward as long as the Supreme Court doesn't do what they did in Roe versus Wade in '74 and basically end the debate on abortion. Whereas now we're able to have these debates over the transing of kids and again, removing genitals and calling it health care. Just absolutely insane.
Right. And one,
Go
and
ahead.
I was just going to say, and one thing that was really confirming to us, like you mentioned, we were kind of the trailblazers. You had other states that were coming up with similar legislation all around us: Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, the ones that I know of. That's there may be others that I'm not aware of, but we felt really good about being the trailblazers for that type of legislation.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, and I know this is going to be a tall order, but as I see it as a father myself, and I just see everything that's happening, I see this abuse. I would like to see us open up the child abuse statutes and qualify this as actual child abuse. And I know that's going to be hugely controversial because, I mean, it is abuse, but the practical effects that will have on people that if they want to continue these treatments for their kids, then treatments, okay, if they want to continue, caving to the left sex religion, as I call it, the idea, well, we'll just go to California and have it done. Well, no, not if you think you're going to come back here, okay? Because
Right.
this we've classified these procedures as abuse because that's what they are. And I know that's again a tall order. It was floated down in Texas, and quite frankly, there was a lot of GOP donors that they didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because of the ramifications. But I think it's our obligation at some point.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll just. I don't know how soon that will come up, but I think you're probably onto something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so last question. Fiscal session coming up next year. Any news on that, or any update that you want to give us on that?
Sorry, I don't know. I'm not very aware of the budgetary parts, and that's one thing that I am learning. While I understood about the law process, budget finance is an area that I am really having to learn and research and kind of grasp.
Absolutely.
I do know that a lot of money is going to be allotted to supplanting and supporting hospitals. Particularly in my district, there's already been 4 or 5 throughout the state, and then in my particular district, we have some coming up here in the next couple of months, and so I feel fortunate about that. That my constituents will see some help there, some renovation, and some upgrades on medical equipment in the hospitals, and then I know with highways and things like that, that'll continue. That's just kind of all I know, and I know that's just barely the tip of the iceberg. I know there's so much more that goes on to finance planning and all that stuff, and so I'll just leave it at that.
All right. State Representative Joey Carr, we really appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for coming on Conservative Arkansas Media. We really appreciate it.
Yes, sir, and thank you for the invite. Have a great
Absolutely.
day.
Let's do it again
Be blessed.
sometime.